here we are. This is Jelani Asar with the Unfunded Liabilities Monster. That is usunfundedliabilities.wordpress.com. And we're here with Reid Rosenthal. And Reid is an accomplished author. He just put out a book. And he's also a realtor. He's a fourth-generation rancher and investor in land and cattle. And we're going to talk about some of the issues with retirement in the United States and ways that people can respond to this retirement crisis by investing in land. So, Reid, how you doing?
I'm doing just great. How are you?
I'm doing fine as well. So, you just wrote Land for Love and Money, and you also have an accompanying workbook with it, which is Green for Green. Is that correct?
Well, Land for Love and Money will actually be released, the first of a three-part series this fall by Amethyst Moon Publishing. And it is kind of the A to Z of land told in anecdotal form. It is the story of how to love your land, make it love you back, and get a check in between.
Okay. And is that something that, is it pretty easy? Is it a long process?
You know, it's not particularly a long process. It's a fun and rewarding process, but it's a process that people have to understand the universal truths of land to make a good decision on their land purchases. And this doesn't matter whether it's a third of an acre in an ex-urban setting or 1 acre for a cabin on the shores of Lake Michigan or a multi-thousand-acre ranch in the Rockies. There are universal truths when purchasing, owning, managing, improving, and eventually disposing of land.
And is this your first title on land ownership and purchasing?
Yes, this is my first nonfiction book.
Okay.
I have a fiction series out, Threads West, an American Saga. The first book has been a #1 national bestseller and won 7 national awards, including Best Western, Best Romance, and Best Historical Fiction of the Year, which I'm kind of thrilled about. Stunned and thrilled.
Great.
And that book, not coincidentally, has as one of its main and enduring characters the land, because it's the personalities of America and the personalities of the American West have been forged on the anvil of the land. So its evolution has played a great role. Yes.
That's great. And I remember you were saying that you were recently at a conference for romance authors?
Yes, I was at the Romance Writers of America National Convention in New York City, which was quite the experience. It's the first time I've been to that.
Okay.
It was me and thousands of female romance writers. It was a tsunami. It was a tsunami of estrogen.
That's great. So, well, what I'm wondering about is, as far as my research in investing, and I'm very much at the beginning stages, really at the learning phase, and I haven't really heard people really mention land ownership that much. I have heard quite a bit about real estate, some about stocks, also a lot about gold and silver, but not so much about land. Do you have any ideas as to why that could be?
I think most people are really kind of unfamiliar with land other than their kind of heart connection to it. I mean, how many of us have not stood on the hillside or stood on the beach, looked at an expansive view, breathed in, and said, wow, this feels good? Everybody has. I mean, it's universal. In this age of of government run amok, of money supply that has quintupled, sextupled, and more. I mean, 800 million normal M2, and now we're at 6 or 7 billion. The result is, what there's least of is worth most. And when you print more dollars, you have more dollars. That means dollars are worth less.
Right.
Most people don't understand that inflation is not the increase in value of goods, services, and commodities. It's the decrease in value of the purchasing agent, i.e. the dollar, of those materials.
Right.
If you subscribe to that theory of inflation, which is inflation, then you need to protect your wealth by investing in tangible assets.
Right.
And as you you mentioned, some people believe in numismatics, precious metals, etc. But who wants to carry a sack of silver around over their shoulder all the time? Other people believe in energy, and I think that's a good bet. And there's many derivative ways to invest in energy, although, the best way is to have a direct percentage in a producing oil well or gas well. And then, of course, you have land. And land, of all those tangible investments, is the only one that you can enjoy and that fulfills other aspects of your life. At the same time, you are sheltering your wealth.
Because you're actually able to use the land and live on the land.
You can live on the land, you can enjoy the land, you can recreate on the land, you have a legacy to pass down to your family, and the land can provide you many tax benefits and tax incentives along with income, which none of these other investments can do along the way.
Could you speak a bit more on that, starting with the tax benefits and then the income?
Absolutely. Let's say you buy a small piece of land. Not everybody's going to be buying thousands of acres somewhere. But if you buy a small piece of land, just looking at the investment and tax side, number one, there are certain improvements you can make to that land if it has the resources, which can give you a 5-to-1, 6-to-1 bang for your dollar. For instance, just building a small pond on a few-acre piece can increase the value of that piece 3 to 4x. And the cost is 1/10 of the increase in value. That's one example of how to increase value. Number two, there's many ways to get tax benefit. And they have to be legitimate. You can't contrive this stuff. But let's say you buy a few-acre piece of ground and you segregate off 1 acre for a vegetable garden. I'm going to make this really simple. And you and your kids go down to the market every Saturday and sell the vegetables down at the farmer's market, or they bring the vegetables to a local supermarket, which is not hard to do. They will buy them.
Yeah.
If you bifurcate your ownership so that your house and 2 acres, I'm just using these as examples, is owned by you personally, and the 1 acre is owned by an LLC. We'll call it Jim's Farm LLC. You then have a business that's derived from the land, and all the expenses and costs that flow to and from that business are tax deductible, unlike the expenses that would flow on just a piece of land, which is just a residential asset.
Right.
Additionally, if you have a piece of land that is well located in terms of next to or encompassing or part of natural resources, in that case, you have the opportunity to do a conservation easement. And a conservation easement is the donation of a portion or all of the bundle of rights which come with land. It may be the right to subdivide. It may be the right to transfer in parcels. It may be the right to build additional structures. Whatever it happens to be, those bundles of rights, each one of them has a value. That gets appraised, I'm simplifying this, and that becomes a tax deduction, which under current law gives you a 50% deduction against AGI in the year that the grant is made, and to the extent you don't use it, you can carry it forward for 15 years. If you do it right and you have a good plan for your land, you can actually create a situation where the tax deductions are a large percentage, and I've seen in some cases equal the acquisition cost of the property. You own it for free.
Interesting. I'm wondering why I haven't really heard much about land ownership, particularly considering, as you were saying in the beginning, how it's a hedge against inflation, and I just haven't heard it mentioned, even though it makes perfect sense.
I think that folks who would be considered in the upper echelon, upper middle class and above, are busily investing in land right now. It's kind of funny. Americans, the media does a horrible job, the mainstream media. And so the mainstream media is all about how terrible the real estate market is.
Yeah.
So, Americans in their minds equate real estate with land, houses. They lump it all together. But it's not true. Each aspect of real estate is its own very succinct and very separate market. For instance, most people don't know that production land, and I don't care whether it's 5 acres or 5,000 acres, has been going up about a steady 7% per year over the last 3 years during the middle of this great recession. Here's a real estate asset that's been appreciating year in, year out. I might add that there's foreign governments and foreign companies absolutely going to town buying United States production ground right now. Now, what do they know? What do they know that we don't? I mean, we're shying away from real estate while the rest of the world is buying up our farmlands.
Right.
They must know something. They must know something. And what they know is, if you look at the macro, I like to look at macro trends. The bottom line is you have 7.2 billion people on the planet. Depending upon which demographer you talk to, by the year 2050, you're going to have somewhere between 12 billion and 14 billion people on the planet. 25% of the planet is starving now. Okay, there is a limit to the amount of arable ground on the planet Earth. That is ground that can be cultivated and irrigated to produce a crop. That means, let's go back to our original rule. What there's least of is worth most.
Right.
Okay, food is going to become an increasingly important commodity in the future. If you have ground that can grow food, and I don't care if it's an acre or 5,000 acres, you have a valuable asset which is playing in perfectly with the long-term trends. In addition, the world is becoming more populated and more crowded. Take a look at the United States. We're up to about 350 million people, give or take, and they're estimating that the population of the United States, just with normal births, deaths, and abnormal immigration, is going to get up to somewhere between 5 and 600 million by the year 2050. Well, the more people you have, the more land you need to house them, feed them, produce energy for them. Under all lies land. If you think about it, Jelani, nothing we do, nothing we are, nothing we want is not in one way, shape, or form. It does not in one way, shape, or form have as its foundation the land.
Right.
Okay? The air we breathe is through transpiration from green vegetation on the land. The food we eat comes from the land. It's either grown on the land or pastures on the land. The water we drink originates on the land, flows through the land, and into our taps. And I can go on and on and on. Under all lies the land. And when you have a basic foundation block to life, which is land, and you have an increasing pressure on that land, increasing demand for that land in any of its forms, you have a valuable asset for the long term.